Now, after 100 days without Premier League football, last night it returned. Aston Villa played Sheffield United in a very important game for both clubs. Villa are facing relegation, and Sheffield United have remarkably got a chance to get into the Champions League, particularly if Manchester City are eliminated from that competition. The other game between Manchester City and Arsenal had its own interest, and I'm joined now by John Giles and Liam Brady to talk about the two games. Liam, I thought the most impressive thing about the night, and perhaps the most important thing, came before the first game and before the second game, when all 22 players took the knee along with the officials in a show of solidarity with black people in football, and of course with the whole business of Black Lives Mattering. And instead of names on the back of the jerseys, the slogan Black Lives Matter was there. I thought it was a powerful display and very welcome.
Well, yes, Simon, yeah, and the Premier League goes, worldwide, doesn't it?
Yes.
The whole world is tuning into those games. So it was a powerful statement. I've never seen a worse photograph in many, many years than that policeman with his knee on George Floyd's neck.
Yes.
And quite honestly, I'm glad and happy that people have taken up this cause, and maybe will be a catalyst for change. Maybe things will start changing. We had a lot of protests here in Britain, and it's a big debate, and I think it was a very, very apt statement by the players and officials last night.
Yeah, John, very important for a number of reasons. One is that I think a third of the players who play in the Premier League and in football in general are black or Asian or from some other ethnic minority. But also, and I wonder if you and Liam would comment on this, expressing racist sentiments. One of the few places you can do it almost without any risk is in football stadiums, and we've all seen it, haven't we?
Oh yes, it's been going on for years, Eamon, as we know. I mean, it was Clyde Best, I think, was the first black man, well known anyway in football. Yes. In my time, that was black and got very, very much abused, Eamon, wherever he went.
Yeah.
And but luckily enough, it has improved since then, Eamon. Now it needs a lot. It still needs a lot to be done.
Yes.
But when I started, and I was before you, there was only one black person, as I say, in the first division.
Yeah.
That I can remember. At least now we've got quite a lot of black players playing, Eamon.
Yes.
It has improved from the old days, but it still needs to be improved even more.
Yes, and just to confirm that point, Liam, you do get a very small minority, but a vocal minority of racists on football, in football grounds, and it's very ugly when we see it, isn't it?
Yeah, well, we only saw it last season with Raheem Sterling at Chelsea, didn't we? The cameras showed you could actually hear the abuse the player was getting, and it's something that we need to eradicate from our game, and the clubs need to take action. Any sort of abuse at all, those people should not be allowed into football stadiums ever again.
Yes, and that made the statement last night all the more powerful. Now to move on to the football side of it, John, Aston Villa, second from bottom. It's very tight down there. There are 4 or 5 clubs they could catch. There's not much in it, a point or two here or there. And I felt another big issue, we'll probably talk about it again, empty stadiums. It does take away the home advantage, in my view. Would you agree?
Not necessarily, Eamon. I think
you never paid any attention to the crowd anyway.
Well, when you're a professional footballer, I don't think you should pay any attention to the crowd, Eamon. I think you have to do the job properly. I mean, I've always felt with the crowd, and I don't mean to be controversial, Eamon, when I played that. They used to say, well, what was the main thing with the crowd? The noise they made, right?
Yeah.
How does it noise? I mean, I always felt playing, if I have the ball in the middle of the field and I'm playing with Eddie Gray on the left wing, the crowd can't stop me with the noise getting it where it should be, Eamon.
Yeah.
I always thought it was overrated, let's put it that way.
Yeah.
And I think the mindset over the years, it's become the mindset, well, away from home, we've got to be careful and we've got to be this and we've got to be that. And you see the top teams. I mean, you take Liverpool this year has been the top team, Eamon. Do they play any different away from home?
No. But the point, and I put the point to Liam, because John once got into big trouble when he gave an interview to a newspaper, which I think I encouraged him to give. And yeah, I did. And he implied that he never paid any attention to the crowd in the stadium. It didn't matter to him. Now, it was misinterpreted, but John was stuck with that idea that the crowd didn't matter. All the statistics, Liam, show that home teams are favoured. In my own view, it's that extra 5% of intensity that's missing, and at the top level in the game, that 5% matters. What's your view anyway, Liam?
Well, John was a great player, and great players are probably less affected by atmosphere and by intensity, but not all players are John Giles.
Yeah.
And I think there is an element that some players fear certain places, some players don't perform because of a hostile atmosphere.
Yes.
John was a special player, and that's probably one of the reasons why it made him a special player. He didn't fear going anywhere. So, but we've got to do without crowds now, Eamon, and I know John is not a stats man, but I was reading something in Germany that the results have been a lot different. A lot of home teams are not winning games, and maybe that is the reason. But I would say that John was a special player, and that one of the reasons why he was a special player was he could go anywhere and just concentrate on the game and not let anything interfere with his mindset.
John?
Liam, can I just say something there, Eamon?
Yeah.
The stats are proven now that the home crowd don't have an advantage, right? Because the home crowd, there's nobody in the stadium, right? Now, what I was always trying to get to, and I don't to go too much on it, that the crowd can affect you mentally, Eamon, but physically can't affect you because it can't stop you doing what needs to be done.
No.
On the pitch. So it's a psychological thing going into the game, and it's in the game that, if we get a draw here today away from home would be a great result. And that's become, I think that's why the stats are as they are, because it has become part of the game that away from home we've got to be very careful. But the great teams haven't done that. That's all my take. And I understand. I understand the stats, Eamon. Yeah. I don't understand the reason for it.
Yeah, well, the reason is, I can tell you, as someone who wasn't much of a player at all, that there is extra intensity. You might win a tackle that you wouldn't otherwise make. You might stretch for a ball in the box. And get a touch, it leads to a goal. It's just a question of intensity, of concentration, of focus, and there's no doubt about that, because as Liam pointed out, John, the stats since the Bundesliga resumed tell a fascinating story about home crowds not being there and bad results as a result. However, I want to ask you about Jack Grealish. He plays for Villa. He, at one stage, was on the sort of horizon for us. He qualifies to play for Ireland, but I think Roy Keane perhaps had a go at his father, said he was high maintenance. We didn't get him. How good is he, John? Manchester United are reported to be ready to sign him.
Yeah, I like him, Eamon. I think he's a very, very talented lad, one of the most talented lads in the league. I think when I see him as a central midfield player, and most of the time he doesn't play in that position for Villa. So he's playing wide, which means he's waiting for somebody to feed him with the ball. We don't really have that many players that can do that at Villa, Eamon. No. I think he should be played in the middle, because every time he gets on the ball, he does something constructive and something well.
Yes.
So that if I were Manchester United or one of the top teams, I would try to buy him.
Right.
and play him in the central midfield position.
Liam, do you think he's capable of making the step up?
Well, yes, I do. Yeah, he is a talented player, and sometimes, you put a talented player in with really, really good players, they can really make a big contribution. So I would say Villa will find it difficult to hold on to him. And to be quite honest, watching Villa last night, they have very little going for them, and if he wants to get to the very top of the game, which every player should want, he'll probably have to leave Aston Villa.
Yeah. Now, John, the Sheffield United story is a great story. This Chris Wilder is their coach. He's been down in the lower leagues. He coached at Northampton at one stage. He went to Sheffield. They were in, I think, League One. So he's taken them up through the Championship with a lot of the players who are still in the side, including Enda Stevens. They've made the journey all the way up through the leagues with him. He's proved himself to be an outstanding coach, and they are a very, very good team, aren't they?
Very good, Eamon. I mean, the way to really judge a manager is like Chris Wilder.
Yeah.
Don't have the resources that the big clubs have, Eamon, spending huge money. He has to have a knowledge of the game. He has to have a knowledge of a player at that level to say they can do it. And I mean, the stories you say about our man Stevens, I didn't know it, but he was at Villa at one time, played 10 matches for them. They let him go, and he teamed up with Chris Wilder.
And he went out on loan to Northampton, and he stayed with Chris Wilder. They've stayed together all the way through his career as a player and Wilder's career as a coach. And starting at Northampton, it's a long road to travel, and he's done it.
Yeah, but he saw it in him, Eamon.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Obviously, that's what good managers do. They say they have a knife for a player. I mean, he was released by Villa, but he obviously saw something in him and brought him up, and he's a top class player now. Yeah. I mean, that's what I think. That's what the top managers do. They see talent, they see things that other people can't see.
Yeah.
And obviously, then you've got to do the job after that. But he seems to be a down to earth guy. He seems to have a good knowledge of the game, and he's done a brilliant job. Absolutely brilliant.
Liam, it's very commendable, isn't it? Well, it's more than that. They don't look like a team who are on a one-season run that are going to collapse next year and get relegated. They look a good team.
They're organised, Eamon. They're very, very organised, and they all work extremely hard for one another. And he's done well also in the transfer market. He's brought good players in. He's got the goalkeeper on loan who's been outstanding for him this season. So he's really done his work,
Yes.
Billy Sharp, I think, is another player that's been with him a long time, scoring goals all up through the league. So on a shoestring, he's seventh in the league. He should be higher up.
Yeah.
But for a shambolic performance by the officials and VAR and TMC or whatever you call it last night. They should be a lot closer to Champions League positions. They should have won that game last night. I know we're going to talk about that.
Yeah, well, I'll start with you, Liam. The decision, the technology on Hawkeye, which is the goal line technology, didn't work. They said it didn't work because, it didn't work. It was a Mickey Mouse excuse. But it transpires, and the match commentators said this, that at that point when it didn't work, although it clearly had gone over the line, VAR had the right to call it and to change the decision and give a goal, but they didn't, because I don't think they realised that they had. So that was really a mess.
Absolutely, but let's go back to before we had Hawkeye and we had VAR. We had a referee and we have a linesman, and the linesman's usually down, in line with the last player in defence. So are you telling me that linesman didn't see the goalkeeper had the ball in the net? He was in the net for 2 or 3 seconds, Eamon. The ball was in the net.
He was, yeah.
Now there's a joke going about today because of COVID-19. The ball had to be 2 meters over the line. I think that's a bit strong. So, and the referee was on the edge of the box. So okay, so they're taken out of the equation by the Hawkeye.
Yes.
And if Hawkeye doesn't buzz his watch,
yes,
that's the end of it. Even if his eyes see, or his linesman's eyes see that the ball's in the net.
Yeah.
And by the way, it was the centre forward who bundled, his own centre forward who bundled the goalkeeper into the net. So all those were easy to see as far as I noticed. So then you got the fact that Hawkeye doesn't. Well, why doesn't VAR intervene?
Yes.
They must have seen that. As I say, it was 2 or 3 seconds. It wasn't a split second where you could know what happened there. He was stood against the side netting with the ball in the net.
Yeah.
And VAR should have interfered and said, "Hang on a minute, Michael Oliver. Hang on a minute. You need to call a halt to the game, and you need to look at this."
Yeah.
But they bottled it, as they usually do. They bottled it, and they hide behind the technology now.
Yeah.
But you see, the technology is one thing, but they're human beings who are making the technology rules.
Yes. Yeah. And
these are all referees, and they all stick together. And it's time and time again they've made mistakes, and then they duck out of their own personal responsibility. And I'm not talking about the referee on the pitch yesterday. I have some sympathy for him.
Yes.
But the people at VAR in Stockley Park were outrageously wrong. It was shambolic.
Yeah, John, there's not much more to add to that except to say.
Well, I could add something. I'd add something to it, Eamon. And I'm not. It was a shambles. It's not the technology, Eamon, that's the shambles. It's the people that's running it. And I think Liam said that.
Yeah.
But I only think what could have happened, that the technology over the years for the ball being over the line has been brilliant.
Yes.
I can't remember a mistake like that was made. I just can't. It's been absolutely brilliant.
Yeah.
So what I think was that the people upstairs and the referee didn't know that it was broken.
Yes, and there's no doubt
and
about
they're
that.
waiting for the signal.
Yeah.
Right?
I wouldn't say the referee
the
could do
signal has
very
been
much.
brilliant, Damon. There's been no mistakes whatsoever over the last 5 or 6 or 7, whatever years it was, about the ball being over the line. Even it's over 2 inches over the line, where a lot of times I said, and I'm sure you said, that I don't know whether that was over the line or not.
Just to say that the goalkeeper, Orion Nyland, who's a young lad, he didn't look very imposing during the game, and he was badly at fault in that particular instance as well. That's a situation he should have dominated.
He should have done better. But I mean, have I made my point, Damon, that the referee last night, as this thing has been so good, is waiting for the signal, doesn't get it. The guys upstairs don't know what's happened because the referee hasn't given it. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Obviously, it was a mess, but I can understand it up to a point.
Yeah.
Eamon, because the technology means and I'd say something with the new grounds and the new things coming in have messed it up some way or another.
Right.
But I mean, the technology is still good. I think the thing over the line's been good. I think VAR is good itself. It's the interpretation of it, and they didn't get it right. That's for sure.
Now it cost Sheffield United 2 points. They got their point in the end. Now I want to move on now, Liam, to the Manchester City Arsenal match again. City really their season has been, and I say their heads have been wrecked a bit by the ruling that they won't be able to play in the Champions League for 2 seasons. That's a UEFA decision which is being appealed to the Court of Arbitration, and they may get a 1-year reduction. But the game last night was curious. For one, before it even kicked off, Arsenal took 20 players to the game, and Ozil wasn't one of them. Their highest paid player, 350,000 a week, which by my calculations is around 15 million a year. It's a stunning contract. And Mikel Arteta, new to the job at Arsenal, has not found a way to get this guy to perform. It's bad, isn't it?
Yeah, and you can only put it down to the fact that, over the course of the last few weeks since they resumed training, he hasn't been too bothered in training. And I guess that's why Arteta left him at home and is not considering. And I hope now, going forward, he's not considered again. I hope the club do their utmost to get him out. But as you say, I think it's near 17.5 million a year.
Right, yeah.
So it's going to be very, very difficult to get him out the door. because nobody wants him, and he can sit back and take his money. Really, Arsenal are in a mess. I use the word shambolic for Villa Park, but it was shambolic last night. Again, David Luiz coming on and doing what we know he does all the time.
Yeah.
Pepe, who we've paid 70 million for, is on the bench, and he can't even get a look in as a sub.
Yes.
Ozil is at home, who's earning 350 grand a week. The money that's been wasted at that club in recent seasons is frightening.
Yes.
And Luiz is another example of that. I never understood why we took him in the first place. I know it wasn't Arteta's decision. Emery was the manager then.
Yes.
But I think there's people upstairs, executives who are pushing things to the managers, and the managers maybe haven't got enough power or strength to say no to. But I thought Arsenal last night were like a second-rate team, and really Manchester City were toying with them.
They were, yeah. John, even City, by their own high standards, didn't really press it. I thought in the first 20 minutes they got a very cheap goal when David Luiz, who had come on as a sub, there was a lot of injuries in the games last night, a lot of strains, and that's something that also happened in Germany after the long period of not playing. But they didn't have to be at their best, City, and Arsenal. You'd worry for that football club, wouldn't you?
Well, I think it's changed a lot since Wenger was there, Eamon.
Yeah.
Like when Wenger was at his height at Arsenal, I think there's no doubt he controlled the situation, Eamon.
Yeah.
I think the ins and outs of players coming in, and certainly the players he brought in, were brilliant. But I think they were his choices. And he was there for a long time, as we know. He didn't do so well. And I think they took that power away from him. Because I remember reading at the time, they'd be glad to get rid of Wenger because now they can be in charge themselves, which has happened.
Yes.
And it's a total disaster.
Yeah.
Eamon.
Yeah.
I mean, who decided to give Ozil 350 grand a week? Who decided to bring the players in that they brought in recent years since Wenger left, actually?
Well, can I just check with Liam, John? Wasn't Ozil was Arsene Wenger purchase?
Yes, he was, yeah. He came from Real Madrid, for a lot of money. Never really did it, but Arsene stuck with him through thick and thin. But for me, he had his games where he was outstanding, but never really done it on a consistent basis.
No.
And when his contract was up for renewal, they let his contract run down, or he let his own contract run down, and Sanchez was in the same boat. So we had our two highest paid players, probably, in some people's opinion, our best players. Certainly Sanchez was our best player, but in my opinion, Ozil was never our best player.
Yep.
Their contracts were running out, and by this time, as John mentioned there, Arsene had lost the power that he had before, and Ivan Gazidis, who was the chief executive then, was calling the shots, and he decided that Ozil would have to be kept because he couldn't afford to lose him and Sanchez for relatively nothing,
Yeah.
We swapped Sanchez for another waste of money in Mkhitaryan.
Yeah.
He's come here. He's on loan in Rome, so I think he's on a couple of $100 grand a week, and he's on loan out of Rome. These are all decisions that were made under Ivan Gazidis' call when he wrestled the power from Wenger. Ozil his contract was renewed at a whopping great 350 grand a week, when there was many Arsenal supporters saying we need to move him on,
Yeah.
And it's gone on from there. And people that Gazidis picked are now running that show. The executives at the club are calling the shots, and that's why they spent for 1 year. David Luiz has cost over £20 million, Eamon.
Yeah, it's incredible, John, isn't it?
And he's a disaster as a centre back.
He is.
Always has been, Liam.
Yeah.
Yeah, but Frank Lampard. What a call by Frank Lampard and Chelsea to say, okay, and the guys who brought him in at Arsenal were making out like this is a great bargain. He's only cost $8 million, but his wages are $10 million. That's $18 million, and I heard the agent got over £3, £4, £5 million.
Yeah,
it's really, really worrying, as I think John mentioned that word. It's worrying if you're an Arsenal supporter now watching the demise of this club.
Yes, John. Sorry, I interrupted you there. Just to confirm what I thought was the case, that it was Ozil came in when Wenger was still the manager, but he got that new contract when.
He left.
Exactly.
I think Wenger was on his way out, Eamon, before it was officially announced he was on his way out.
Yes.
I think there was a battle for a long time to take the power off them to do what they did, but they're doing what they're doing.
Yes.
And it's a total disaster. Even since Wenger left, Eamon, they bought even more players than Ozil.
Yeah,
and
indeed.
Arteta is in a position now. I did see in the paper the other day that Arteta could well be challenging the board the position for the position he's in, because he's no mug game, and he can see the writing on the wall as we can see it, that if they continue the way they're going with the players they have and the policies they have, it'll only get worse.
Yeah, and
Arteta, like most of the managers, the young managers today, I'd say would be in a financial position to say, look, stick it up your backside. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think the Wenger's reign at the end wasn't good. But I think Emery came in the paper there recently, Eamon, saying that he didn't have the power to do what needed to be done.
Yeah.
And that's the policy there. It had Wenger for a long time, and I think that attitude was, we've got to get rid of this guy and take the power over ourselves, which they have done. And like most of those guys that take over that power, Eamon, who haven't got a clue about football, they've never been in football, they're businessmen, and they think they can do it. And Arsenal, I think, now are paying the price for the conceit of these guys.
Yeah, and just a point to make to both of you, you first, John, because you have first-hand knowledge of how a club as great and powerful as Leeds can actually just dive right through the league and end up in the Championship. A big name and a powerful past and history doesn't protect you from the consequences of a couple of years of madness, does it?
Well, the thing is with Leeds, Eamon, I don't want to bore you with the situation, but Don Revie was very, very successful at Leeds, very successful over a long period of time. And I can tell you now, the directors didn't like him.
Yeah.
They didn't like him. They resented the power that he had at the club. But he won that position because of what he did. Okay?
Yeah.
So everybody would think, when Don Revie was leaving, the directors would do everything they can to keep him.
Yeah.
Now, I'm only giving you my theory. I don't think they did nothing to keep him.
No.
In fact, I think they were glad that he was gone. He didn't get on with the directors.
Yeah.
They didn't like him. He had too much power, right? So in that situation, going back a long time, Don Revie recommended me for the job.
Yeah.
Right? And they turned it down.
Yeah.
I didn't apply for the job. But my theory was that whoever Don Revie recommended for the job was the last person that would get it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? And who is the last person that Don would have recommended for the job?
Brian Clough.
Yes.
Okay, I want to move on, Liam. Just finally to you, Liam. You know, Arsenal throughout its history, really, but particularly in the Premier League years, has had a glorious history, very much a great club, always contending for some trophy. There's no rule, Liam, that says they can't end up in the Championship and fighting for their very lives when you look at a performance, not just last night, but other performances in recent times with players who really aren't fit to wear the shirt.
Well, that's right, Eamon. We have an owner in Stan Kroenke. He's an American businessman, and it's a business to him. But to be honest with him, he has spent lots of money, Eamon, but it's been spent badly on his behalf. And if you do that, you can drop out of contention very easily. And Arteta must be looking at things, and he must be feeling under extreme pressure to get a tune out of these players. Like, he had a lot of young players on the pitch yesterday. Maybe half the team were youngsters who needed help.
Yes.
But they're not getting any help. They're not getting any help from the senior pros. We saw the performance of Mustafi and David Luiz and,
Xhaka, while he was on the pitch.
Well, he was gone after a few minutes.
Yeah.
He was tackled by like Guendouzi, one of his own players. It's probably the only tackle he made all night.
Yeah.
Aubameyang was a worry for me. Looking at him up front, didn't look too bothered. His contract's coming up. He's only got one more year to go.
Yeah.
The club really has got itself in a mess, and I don't know whether Arteta is any manager, never mind a young manager, has the ability to change it round.
Right, and just finally, the fans at Arsenal, Liam, it's the most expensive ticket in the Premier League, I'm told. And that stadium is magnificent. So everything is right, apart from stuff on the pitch.
Well, yeah, and you look at Liverpool. Liverpool looked like they were treading water 4, 5, 6 years ago, but they got the right manager in and they spent the money well. To be fair, when Klopp came into Liverpool, money had been spent well already, and he picked that up, and they carried on doing that, and they've changed their fortunes around immensely. That's the only way Arsenal can do it. But Arteta needs to have it clear out and start with a fresh page. Okay,
Liam and John, thank you both very much for joining us. That's Liam Brady and John Giles. We're grateful to Liam and John, and we're grateful to you for listening.